At the will reading, my parents smiled as the lawyer handed Vanessa a check for $10 million. Then they turned to me and said, "Go earn your own." I didn't cry, I didn't flinch, I just stared at the polished table, pretending my pulse wasn't thudding in my ears. Then something shifted. An older man in a grey suit stood up. "There's one more document," he said, unfolding a worn envelope with my grandfather's handwriting on it. My mother's smile vanished instantly. My father's jaw tightened. Vanessa's eyes narrowed into sharp slits. That envelope didn't just contain words, it carried weight, the kind that could crack glass if you dropped it. The room, moments ago buzzing with smug satisfaction, turned still, brittle. You could almost hear the lies begin to tremble. The man's hands were steady, but everyone else's were not. I watched the blood drain from my mother's face as if she already knew what was inside. My father adjusted his cufflinks twice in 30 seconds, a tick he reserved for when he lost control of a narrative. And Vanessa? She leaned forward with a casual confidence, but her foot tapped an anxious rhythm under the table. That envelope was a grenade, and they knew it. The lawyer cleared his throat, slid the envelope onto the table, and looked directly at me. "This was written by Walter Whitman, your grandfather. He gave explicit instructions that it only be opened once all parties were present." My heart thumped louder. Not because I was afraid, but because I knew. Deep down, I had always known I was never meant to be erased. My grandfather, the only person who truly saw me, had left something behind. A final word. Maybe even justice. My parents had orchestrated this perfect performance, cast Vanessa as the golden child, and locked me out of the script. But this letter, this was a rewrite. This was the beginning of something they could not control. And it all started at the place where truth still had roots. My grandfather's ranch, a place I hadn't seen in over a year, where the wind once whispered love, and now howled betrayal. I hadn't seen the ranch in over a year, not since the spring before my grandfather passed. But as I turned down the long gravel road, linking back to the moment that envelope was opened at the will reading, something deeper than memory stirred inside me. The place wasn't just land and lumber, it was history soaked into the soil, silence caught in the wind. The magnolia trees still leaned east like they were listening. The chipped white door still looked like it might fall off the hinges. And the wind chimes on the porch, once the soundtrack of sweet tea summers and slow afternoons, now echoed like ghosts. I stepped out of the car, boots crunching gravel beneath me, and hesitated. The house hadn't changed, but I had. There was a heaviness to everything now, like the air was holding its breath. When I finally knocked, the creaking door opened to a voice sharper than time. "So, you finally decided to show up." My grandmother stood there, arms crossed, lips pursed tight as fence wire. Her eyes scanned me like she was trying to recognize a girl lost in the pages of a book she once read. I stepped forward, unsure whether to speak or apologize. "They told me you didn't want to see me," I whispered. Her jaw clenched. "Your grandfather called for you every day before he died. Every single day, Delilah." My heart dropped. "That's not true," I said quickly. "I came in March. Vanessa answered the door. She said no one was home." My grandmother narrowed her eyes, stepped back into the house, and returned with a battered leather notepad. "This is the number he kept calling." My breath caught. It wasn't mine. I had never changed it. My voice trembled as I showed her the number wasn't even close. If you're still watching and this story has you angry too, comment yes below and subscribe to the channel. There's more to uncover. Her fingers trembled as she sank into the floral armchair. "They told us you changed it, that you were ashamed." I backed toward the wall, my throat burning. "No," I said. "They lied to you. They cut me off on purpose." The betrayal hung in the room like smoke. My grandmother didn't speak, just looked at the fireplace like the flames might explain how a family could fall apart so quietly. And in that moment, I knew. This wasn't just my return. It was the beginning of a reckoning. The storm didn't truly begin until the day everyone returned to the ranch, summoned by my grandmother's cold, clipped voice. She didn't give them a choice, just a time. Vanessa rolled up in designer sunglasses like it was a casual brunch. My mother brought her usual artificial warmth, and my father walked in like he already had better places to be. None of them knew I was there. I sat in the kitchen, tracing my finger along the old table where Grandpa used to read my science fair proposals like they were classified government reports. I heard the greetings, Vanessa scoffing, my mother faking delight, my father's impatience disguised as composure. But then I heard silence, followed by Grandma's steel-edged command, "Please sit down, Mr. Harold Keene is on his way." The moment I stepped into the room, time seemed to stall. 3 heads turned in unison. My mother's smile froze halfway to a compliment. My father stiffened like he'd seen a threat. Vanessa's face turned pale as ash. They weren't just surprised, they were terrified. Their perfect performance had been interrupted, their script shredded by my presence. I took the empty seat across from them without a word. Grandma stood behind me like a sentry. The lawyer gave me a polite nod, then pulled out a thick envelope and began, "This is the last will and testament of Walter R. Whitman." His voice carried no drama, but the contents he read detonated like fireworks in a church. The research annex, an entire facility, with patents and funding, was left to me. The rest of the estate was to be shared between me and Vanessa. That one line cracked the room in half. Vanessa shot to her feet, voice shaking with rage. "You said it would all be mine." She pointed at our parents. "You told me if I visited, if I smiled, I'd get everything." My mother stared at the floor. My father said nothing. But the real blow hadn't landed yet. Mr. Keene unfolded another paper, softer this time. A letter, handwritten. "This was from your grandfather," he said, "to be read aloud." My hands curled in my lap. I braced myself. The lies had been loud. But now, for the first time in years, the truth was about to speak, and it had my name on it. The lawyer's voice barely rose above a whisper, but each word carried the force of an avalanche. This letter was written by Walter R. Whitman 1 week before his passing. He requested it be read aloud, with all family members present. The room tensed like a wire pulled too tight. Vanessa sank back into her chair with a bitter scoff. My mother kept her eyes glued to the floor. My father shifted in his seat, adjusting his collar as if trying to fix something already broken. Mr. Keene unfolded the paper carefully, and when he began reading, it was like oxygen returned to the room, but only for me. "To my dearest Delilah," the letter began, "if this is being read, then I am no longer beside you, but my belief in you remains, stronger than ever." My throat tightened. I hadn't heard his voice in months, but now it filled the air, like sunlight breaking through fog. "You were always the quiet one, the thinker, the one who asked why when others were too proud or too comfortable to care." The lawyer paused. No one moved. No one dared. "You built your own truth in a family that never learned to honor yours." My hand shook. I remembered the science fair trophy I begged him to hide, the notebook I thought I lost in college, the dozens of moments I was told to sit down and be less. "You were never a mistake," the letter continued. "You were the legacy I was proudest of." I saw Vanessa recoil like the words physically struck her. My mother's jaw clenched. My father stared blankly out the window. Vanessa was easier for them. She sparkled in ways they understood. But you, Delilah, you glowed in ways they refused to learn. That line shattered something in me. Not from pain, but from validation I had chased my whole life. The letter ended not with anger, but with a gift. "While I cannot undo the damage, I can give you a place that belongs to you, free of shadows, free of shame, a place to build, to believe, and to begin again." Mr. Keene folded the letter with reverence. The silence that followed wasn't hollow. It was weighty. My grandfather's voice had spoken louder in death than my family ever had in life. And for the first time, they were all forced to listen. The house felt different after they left. Quieter, yes, but also freer, like something foul had finally been exorcised. Their footsteps didn't echo with power anymore. They just faded, like noise from a past I no longer owed anything to. I stood in the stillness of the living room, the air still charged from Grandpa's letter, and realized something both sharp and liberating. They had lost control, and I had finally reclaimed my place. Later that night, I sat in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by faded wallpaper and constellations on the ceiling that had long since stopped glowing. But even in the dim light, I could still see the girl I used to be, the one who believed that science could explain everything except why love felt so conditional. The next morning, I drove out to the address Grandpa left in the will, 317 Laurel Creek Road. From the outside, the structure looked like a converted barn, its tin roof catching the sunlight, its wide doors weathered but strong. I stepped inside and stopped breathing. The space was immaculate, flooded with natural light, lined with workbenches, lab equipment, microscopes, and rows of labeled storage. My name was written on the boxes. On the table in the center of the room, like a crown jewel, sat my old science notebook, the one I thought I'd lost during college. Torn pages, messy sketches, wild hypotheses about bee behavior and plant memory. He had kept it all. Grandpa hadn't just left me an inheritance. He built me a sanctuary for my mind, a place that didn't just allow me to be myself, it invited it. Over the following weeks, I moved in full-time. I brought on 2 fellow researchers, Tara and Micah, who shared the same belief that science should be human, curious, and honest. We started small, an irrigation study, a sustainable farming co-op, long days and longer nights filled with failed models and breakthroughs that felt like magic. But even in our mistakes, there was no shame. We were building something. And in that lab, where sunlight met soil and silence met purpose, I discovered the most important truth. I didn't need to prove myself to the people who left me behind. I only needed to keep building what they never understood. A future rooted in truth, a home for the forgotten brilliance they tried to bury. It was a cold February morning when the email arrived, subject line, request for visit, Delilah Whitman, Innovation Annex. At first, I braced for a legal threat, assuming it was another attempt to contest the will or stir up old resentments that had already been buried beneath years of work and progress. But when Vanessa walked through the front doors of the annex later that week, I barely recognized her. The woman who used to glide into every room like she owned the light now moved carefully, wrapped in a navy coat too big for her shoulders, no makeup, no practiced smile. She paused under the portrait of Grandpa that hung above the reception desk. "He always knew who you were," she said softly. "Even when I didn't. Especially when I didn't." I said nothing at first. Some silences speak louder than words, but I gave her the tour, not because she deserved it, but because the work deserved to be seen. We moved through the main lab where student research posters lined the walls. She asked simple, honest questions. How do you fund all this? Do the kids get to publish their results? What is this device used for? She didn't pretend to be impressed. She just looked around like someone seeing the world without a filter for the first time. When we reached the community garden, she stopped walking. Children were harvesting lettuce with soil-streaked hands. A mother and son laughed over compost bins. A teenage girl tested soil moisture using our low-cost kits. Vanessa's voice broke. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said, her fingers twitching. "I just wanted to see what he built for you, and what you built with it." I didn't offer comfort. I didn't have to. She stayed for an hour, maybe 2, just watching, listening, helping where she could. Since then, she's come back twice a year to volunteer. The kids call her Coach V. She teaches them how to present, how to speak with confidence, how to stand when the world wants them to shrink. She never apologized outright, but maybe she doesn't need to. Sometimes redemption doesn't come in words. It comes in showing up, even if it's late. And in this corner of the world Grandpa built for truth, that just might be enough. It has been 6 years since the day the front door closed behind my parents and Vanessa, their departure echoing like the final scene of a play that never deserved applause. I never heard from them again. Not really. Occasionally, their names appear in email signatures attached to distant charity galas or in articles about tax shelters and real estate ventures in Florida. But they haven't called, they haven't written. And the truth is, I don't miss them. What I think about now isn't what I lost, it's what I've built. The annex has grown into a living, breathing thing. What began as a single converted barn is now a full-scale research campus with multiple labs, 3 greenhouses, and over 60 acres of test fields. We've developed drought-resistant seeds that feed families across the South, formed global partnerships from Brazil to Kenya, and launched education programs that reach hundreds of kids each year. Kids who once thought science wasn't meant for them. Grandma lives in a small apartment attached to my home now. Slower in step, quicker in spirit, she tells me stories about Grandpa I never knew, like how he once planted a tree just to propose, or how he believed that soil could remember kindness. And maybe it can. Every morning, we sit together in the sunroom with coffee and memory, and every night I walk the annex fields alone, passing the old bench Grandpa built. From there, the stars look close enough to touch. Not the plastic ones I once stuck on my ceiling, but the real kind, wild, distant, and full of unanswered questions. And somewhere between the wind and the dirt, I still hear his voice. Write the things they don't understand. One day, the world will. If this story moved you, don't scroll past, comment legacy below, and subscribe for more powerful stories like Delilah's. This isn't the end. It's only the beginning.